Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going on the absolute ultimate time travel adventure. Forget jumping back a few centuries or even a few millennia. Today, we are crossing a breathtaking 4.6 billion years of history. We're going to trace the epic journey of our planet, starting from its violent, fiery birth, all the way to the incredibly complex, modern civilizations we live in today. It's an absolutely unbelievable story of survival against all odds. So let's get started. To make sense of this massive scale of time, we'll be looking at the 5 great eras of our planet's story. That's Section 1, the birth of Earth, Section 2, Age of the Dinosaurs, Section 3, Rise of Homo sapiens, Section 4, Migration and Neanderthal DNA, and Section 5, Dawn of Human Civilization.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the birth of Earth, from lava to life.
I want you to try and picture a world that is completely unrecognizable from the blue marble we know today. Just think of absolute, pure chaos. 4.6 billion years ago, our planet was basically a sensory nightmare. It was just this burning sphere of boiling lava rivers, relentless volcanic eruptions, and an atmosphere totally choked with toxic gases. Zero oxygen, none. But then, almost like magic, millions of years later, massive, unending rains began to fall. And this rain eventually cooled that scorching rock and formed our first giant oceans. Down deep in those waters, the very first microscopic organisms appeared. And some of these tiny heroes actually started producing oxygen, which fundamentally changed the entire face of the planet, making it hospitable for everything that was about to come.
Moving right along to Section 2, Age of the Dinosaurs, the Giants' Rise.
So, with the air now clear and deep, lush forests spreading all across the land, nature provided the perfect stage for life to just scale up massively. Around 230 million years ago, during the Triassic period, the very first dinosaurs stepped onto the scene. But as we move into the Jurassic period millions of years later, these creatures didn't just grow, they literally exploded in size. They became the undisputed kings of the prehistoric world, ruling right up until a fateful day about 65 million years ago.
You know, the insane scale of this evolution is just mind-blowing. Those first Triassic dinosaurs, they were actually tiny. Some were only the size of a fox, just agile, fast-moving little predators. But give evolution some time and a whole lot of leafy greens, and you get the Jurassic giants. I mean, the Brachiosaurus was 85 feet long and weighed over 40 tons. And then there was the Titanosaurus. To put that into perspective for you, a Titanosaurus could easily hide an entire football field beneath its body. Its neck was so long it could eat leaves off a branch as high as a 10-story building. When this thing walked, its footsteps literally shook the earth beneath it.
But, as we all know, every golden age has to come to an end. 65 million years ago, an uninvited guest from space showed up. We're talking about a massive asteroid, somewhere between 10 to 15 kilometers wide, heading straight for the Mexican coast. And it wasn't just big, it was incredibly fast. 70,000 kilometers per hour. That is a terrifying speed. Honestly, if you had been standing there looking up at the sky, you wouldn't have even had time to process what you were seeing. Everything in its path was wiped out in the blink of an eye. So what does this apocalyptic aftermath actually look like? Well, the impact triggered immediate flash fires, turning everything for thousands of miles into pure ash. It unleashed tsunamis thousands of feet high. But the real killer? That was the sky. Smoke and ash blocked out the sun for months, plunging a once lush, warm world into a freezing, silent darkness. And without the sun, plant life completely collapsed. Without plants, the mighty dinosaurs simply starved and froze. Just like that, the undisputed rulers of the earth were gone. Which brings us to Section 3, Rise of Homo sapiens, the mind awakens.
Now, nature absolutely hates a vacuum, right? With the giant predators gone, the empty stage allowed tiny rat-like mammals, our distant ancestors actually, to finally emerge and evolve. About 25 million years ago, massive climate and geographical shifts in Africa caused dense jungles to shrink, and they were replaced by vast open savannas. This shifting environment forced early primates to adapt or die out. Fast forward to about 300,000 years ago, and Homo sapiens finally appear in East Africa. And then, tens of thousands of years ago, a spark ignites, the cognitive revolution. Let's break down exactly what gave us the edge. The very first major leap was completely physical, bipedalism. Because the trees were disappearing, our ancestors had to venture out onto the open savanna to find food. Standing up on two legs was a revolutionary survival tactic. It let us see over tall grass to spot predators, and crucially, it freed up our hands. Suddenly we could hold tools, weapons, and food. It was, quite literally, our first step toward becoming human.
But here is the real game changer, the cognitive revolution. This was a sudden, massive explosion in our thinking power. We didn't just develop language to say, hey, watch out, there's a lion in the bushes. We developed language to tell stories about things that didn't physically exist. Things like gods, laws, money, nations. This shared imagination is exactly why you, yes, you watching this right now, can cooperate with millions of total strangers today. Animals can only organize in small, close-knit packs. But humans, we can organize in the millions purely because we believe in the same stories.
Let's dive into Section 4, Migration and Neanderthal DNA, the global spread. Armed with this incredible teamwork and imagination, our ancestors looked at the horizon and decided to see what lay beyond the mountains. And this sparked a relentless global spread. By 50,000 years ago, humans had somehow crossed ocean straits to reach Australia. By 40,000 years ago, they were surviving the bone-chilling cold of Europe. And by 15,000 years ago, they had crossed all the way into the Americas. They conquered freezing tundras and scorching deserts, and they did the whole shebang entirely without maps, without GPS, and without modern medicine. Our superpower was our ability to adapt our behavior to literally any environment.
But we weren't alone out there. When we marched into Europe and Asia, we met other human species, like the Neanderthals and Denisovans. Now, for a long time, historians thought we just wiped them out in some great prehistoric war. But modern DNA reveals something totally mind-blowing. If you have European or Asian ancestry, 1 to 4% of your DNA comes directly from Neanderthals or Denisovans. We didn't just fight them. We actually interbred with them. So they didn't completely vanish. A piece of them is literally still running through your blood today.
Finally, Section 5, Dawn of Human Civilization, from Hunters to City Builders.
To make the transition from nomadic hunters to massive city builders, cosmic shifts and a change in climate once again completely dictated our fate. 20,000 years ago, the last ice age froze the planet. Humans huddled in caves, just barely scraping by. But around 11,000 years ago, the ice began to melt. This warming created massive, fertile river valleys. So for the first time in millions of years, humans had the unprecedented opportunity to just stop running, put down their spears, and settle in one single place. The agricultural revolution had officially begun.
And this created an amazing cascade of human progress. First, we settled by the rivers. Then, we started planting seeds and domesticating animals. This led to something entirely revolutionary, a surplus of food. Which meant, for the first time, not everyone had to spend all day hunting. And that gave humanity the one thing that sparks true invention: free time. With that free time, we invented copper tools, pottery, and woven clothes. Ultimately, society grew so large that we needed leaders, giving birth to social classes, kings, and organized armies. But it's fascinating to see how differently this evolution actually played out across the world. Take Mesopotamia, built between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It was highly rigid. They built massive ziggurats, temples, their kings ruled as literal gods on earth, and they gave us the very first written laws, and taxes, of course. But then look at the Indus Valley civilization, cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. They were incredibly engineered, boasting highly advanced underground drainage systems. But the big mystery here is that archaeologists haven't found any grand palaces for kings or large caches of weapons. It appears to have been an incredibly advanced, strangely peaceful society based almost entirely on trade and craft. Which brings us to the ultimate question. We have journeyed all the way from boiling lava and toxic gas, survived towering dinosaurs and world-ending asteroids, outlasted brutal ice ages, and built massive civilizations from nothing but mud and shared imagination. We literally went from simply surviving the jungle to writing laws and ruling the earth. But looking back at the sheer epic scale of this 4.6 billion-year trajectory, where do you think it takes us next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning and keep exploring.